So, hello students, welcome to the next question of our philosophy damp. Now, as you know, the next question is of Buddha, Buddhist philosophy. What does the question say? What is Pratitya Samutpad? How does Buddha apply this concept to prove everything is momentary? If you see that way, question is straightforward. You have to write about Pratitya Samutpad and you have to write about Kshanikvad, how it leads to. Basically, the journey from Pratitya Samutpad to Kshanikvad. This is a 15 marker. Okay. Now, as you know, 15 marker means you will be, or you should be writing 3 pages. Okay. Now, you can start with Buddhist, the middle path being the central feature of the Buddhism, which if applied to causation leads to Pratitya Samutpad. Because as you know, subheading will be obviously Pratitya Samutpad would be our subheading. Sorry, first subheading. So it's better you end with some. So you can write it many different ways. Only thing is, let it end with Pratitya Samutpad. And the best way is when the middle path, the conception of avoiding the extremes is applied to the causation. Okay, which comes up with the Buddhist version, that is Buddhist version of causation, that is Pratitya Samutpad. Okay. If you want to write Pratitya Samutpad as the dependent origination and all, that is also okay. But here then you will be required to write 3-4 points accordingly. Then second subheading would be Pratitya Samutpad to Kshanikvad. Okay, and then obviously criticism and then conclusion. Okay, so Pratitya Samutpad, first you write dependent origination. The basic concept is everything in the phenomena, everything is dependent on its cause. Okay, conditioned by cause. So dependent origination, dependent because it is dependent on the previous thing. Origination means it is something new. So it is, as we already talked about, the effort to synthesize the two rivals of Satkaryavad and Asatkaryavad or Asatkaryavad. So what Pratitya Samutpad says basically, then the chain of causes and effects. So every subsequent link is conditioned by, dependent upon, and conditioned by the previous link. Okay. So yes, another thing about Pratitya Samutpad, it becomes the central feature of the second noble truth, as you already know. This concept is illustrated by in the second noble truth, because here you have to address the first part of the question. What is Pratitya Samutpad? Okay, so you basically talk about dependent origination. Okay, then you talk about cause and effect link, subsequent and all that stuff we talked about. Then you also mentioned about the second noble truth, that is the central feature of second noble truth, the Pratitya Samutpad. Then obviously 12 links, basically how the journey or the inquiry from suffering, human suffering, leads to the conclusion of ignorance as this thing for everything. Okay, then if you want to write one more point, then the expression that this cause, this with this cause, this that effect, this cause that effect is like a famous caption or expression explaining the Pratitya Samutpad. Okay, or this is because that is. So basically it is showing the dependence of the effect on the cause. Okay, this is not, then that because that was not, or that is not. So this ceases to be, that ceases to be. Okay, so this Pratitya Samutpad basically establishes the central thing, or in the context of causation, that Buddhism talks about. Now the next thing is Pratyuta samutpadvad to kshanikvad. Pratyuta samutpadvad to kshanikvad. Now this is the main part of the answer, obviously, because that's what the question is saying. Now, Pratyuta samutpadvad, what does it give? It is the thing arises. So basically what it is saying, the next arises from the previous. Automatically means every thing exists only for a moment. Okay. So when we say this is the cause and this is the effect, it is not considering any particular amount of time. What Buddhism says is, in basic, it is only for moment it remains and then transforms into the cause. So because everything is constantly arising and ceasing, then everything constantly arising and ceasing or arising and decaying, thing remains permanent or thing remains existing only for a moment. Continuous link. See, dependent origination means it was dependent, it is originating. Then next will be dependent, originating. So every subsequent thing would be originating from and dependent on the previous link. Okay. So every phenomena exists only for a moment. Okay. And now they have not given moment means 1 second, millisecond. Moment is a least possible amount of time. Okay, for all practical purposes, it is no time. So only exists for a moment. So basically what they are saying, there is nothing that exists. Nothing exists for more than a moment. Okay. Nothing exists for more than a moment. He gives the explanation of or example of lamp, flame lamp or lamp flame. That every subsequent flame is the effect of the previous flame, and any particular flame only exists for a moment of time. Okay. So this Pratyuta samutpadvad is logically leading to kshanikvad, right? They also give the example or extend this example with respect to soul, which leads to later on nairatmyavad. Okay. They also talk about anityavad. Everything is temporary or anitya, non-permanent. Right? These arguments are important. 5-6 arguments at least if you can able to write. And obviously theory of impermanence also, if you want to add, okay, just a statement, you can do it. Buddhist apply Pratyuta samutpada to explain, because all things depend upon changing causes, conditions. They are inherently impermanent. Okay, because things are continuously changing, then they are inherently impermanent. Criticism, very important. As you already know, Shankaracharya criticizes, because then everything is the most important thing. Everything is impermanent or conditional. So obviously there has to be something permanent. So their logic is, it logically makes inevitable to have something permanent, because without permanent, impermanence cannot be logically established. Then the idea that everything is dependent makes everything unreal. So basically, as you know, dependent means it is not real. Okay, it's not ultimately real. So it gives unreal, so that leads to nihilism or nihilistic tendencies in Buddhism or Buddhist or this Pratyuta samutpada. And if everything is dependent on the previous, then it means there is no freedom or choice. This is a very important aspect of Buddhism, that there is no freedom of choice. Okay. Obviously, they also deny any supreme being which Obviously, Shankara will say that, like what happened with Jainism also. Shankara will criticize as atheistic school. Everything is dependent on the previous thing, but another thing is Buddhists have not given the explanation of the first thing from which everything is starting. So the starting point is not explained. Okay. So starting point also not explained. Okay. Then yes, morality becomes impossible. Why? Because nothing is permanent. Then whom would you punish? Why would I be moral if I am not going to be the same tomorrow? I will do whatever I want because tomorrow some other will be going to get punished. Okay. So I think enough. 4 or 5 points are enough because then there will be no space more than that. This understanding of dependent origination encourages with this. So conclusion is obviously you talk about Pratita Samutpadvas being the very, very central feature of Buddhist, and when applied to human suffering leads to the whole of Buddhist philosophy, including Kshanikvad, including middle path and eightfold path. So everything of Buddhist philosophy can be derived back to or reduced back to Pratita Samutpadvada. Okay, that's central it is. Next question, that is doctrine of middle paths. This is a little general question. Middle path being central feature. Okay, middle path being central feature of all of the Buddhist philosophy. Okay, central path is the most central to the whole Buddhist thought. Give arguments in support of this statement. Okay, so middle path, as you know, Madhyamaka or Madhyama Marga is the central this thing of Buddhism, and it is central not obviously to start off with. You know, this is 20 marker, I guess. Yes, this is 20 marker. And there are a lot of things to be written. We have a lot of content for this answer. So 20 marker, yes. So obviously there has to be some criticism, and there will be at least 4 or 5 points. Now, what all things are middle path? Pratita Samutpad is a middle path, right? Then Kshanikvad is a middle path. Then Shunyata is also middle path. These are subheadings. Best way to write this answer. Then even eightfold path is also middle path. Okay. And meditative practice or meditation practice that Buddha suggests is also a middle path. Write it here because there won't be space. Like this. 5 points are enough. So all the things which are central, as you already know, central to Buddhist philosophy, they are actually the middle paths or nothing but middle path in different context. Okay. What would you write in introduction? As you know, middle path is the central and the most important aspect, because Buddha himself, his message with respect to the instructions to life, like Buddha's one of the central message of Buddha and his philosophy and his life is avoiding the extremes of self-indulgence, extreme self-indulgence and extreme self-denial. So Buddha first introduced the middle path with respect to his own journey, with respect to the extravagance and austerity, the middle path between extravagance and austerity, and later on got translated into many other aspects, which includes metaphysical, ethical, and others. So why Pratitya Samutpad is middle path? You already know. First, you mentioned what Pratitya Samutpad is, and it is a middle path of Asatkaryavad and Satkaryavad. Okay, so you already know the point because it is the middle path between Satkaryavad says the effect pre-exists in the cause. Asatkaryavad says no, it is a new beginning. Then Pratitya Samutpadvad says it is new beginning and dependent both. Okay, new beginning and dependent. Right. So this is the best, most important point: Satkaryavad and Asatkaryavad. Kshanikvad. Now, with respect to the existence of things, some say things are permanent, other things, or for that matter, you start with this: being and non-being. Middle path is becoming. Okay, so basically talking about eternalism and nihilism. Okay, and the middle path is shunyata. You can mention shunyata here also. So Kshanikvad is about being and becoming, eternalism and nihilism. Here shunyata in the context of void. So this is like a typical debate in the context of eternalism and nihilism. This is specifically what Nagarjuna came up with. So here you come up with becoming, here you come up with shunyata. So these are slightly different points because here it is about reality, here it is about existence of things. So whether things exist permanently or they do not exist permanently, they say no, they exist for a moment. That's why becoming and Kshanikvad. Here it is reality is whether eternal or non-eternal. Extension, obviously, Kshanikvad, Shunyata is extension of Kshanikvad only. So he says no, it is Madhyam. Obviously, Shunyata is Madhyam mark, where in reality is Shunyata. That is, it is void, means the things do not have inherent, essential or unchanging nature. Everything is, things are there and continuously changing. Both are there. So Shunyata is the ultimate reality. So he's not denying that there is nothing is real. They are saying the void is real. Shunyata is real. Then eightfold path. Okay. Now how eightfold path is middle path? Because as you say, it's a middle path between Charvaka's hedonism and Jainism's extreme austerity. Extreme austerity or asceticism means absolute renunciation. So he says eightfold path has the points wherein you have to live the balanced life. Avoiding the extreme lifestyles, the middle path advises against the indulgence in luxury and self-denial. So it is the middle path between Charvaka's hedonism and Jainism's extreme asceticism or extreme austerity. Then, even in the context of meditative practice, you might have known, it's just an additional point. Even if you do not write, it's okay. Buddhists provide a middle path which encourages balance between over action, over effort, which leads to tension while meditation, and under effort, which leads to laziness. So you have to have continuous efforts, neither over, neither less. Continuous monitoring has to be done. Like you have to meditate continuously upon Pratitya Samutpadvad Dhamma, that is Pratitya Samutpadvad, which will lead to liberation. So it's not that completely you are not doing anything, and it's not that you are doing too much things, even during meditative practice. But this is just the additional point. There is one more point if you want to write, that is agnosticism or theological agnosticism if you want to write. That is, with respect to the existence of God, there are two extreme views. One is God theist view, God is there, and second is atheistic view. So both leads to, or both can be reconciled into agnostic. That is, the question whether God exists is something that does not have any answer as such. So indulging into the debate according to Buddha, is a waste of time. Instead, one should focus on elimination or reduction of human suffering. Okay. So these are the 6 points or 6 aspects wherein it is clearly established that Buddhism talks about middle path. Critical comments. Now, critical comments has to be about this general middle path thing, which includes Pratita Samutpadvad, Kshanikvad, Shunyata, one point for each also, and you already know the criticism of each and everything. One point. Okay. So first of all, when we talk about Shunyata, for that matter, it tends more towards nihilism, or rather the criticism goes like this, that the Shunyata is not able to separate itself from nihilism. Whatever Nagarjuna says, it's not actually a middle path. It inclines itself more towards nihilism. Okay, and nihilism is generally considered to be a not very optimistic philosophy. Then middle path is too general. Okay, now what happens? This concept of middle path itself is because extremes are very subjective perception, subjective conception, subjective idea, extremes. So two people's extreme will be different, so their middle path will be different. So it becomes very subjective, very vague. Okay, and it lacks any specific guidelines. Middle approach to follow middle approach in every situation, it's actually a very vague guideline, because since it encourages avoiding extremes, people may interpret the middle differently, and this happens, leading to confusion and inconsistent application. Now, Vedantic or Jain philosopher also criticize middle path, that appears to be approach of mere renunciation rather than promoting. So middle path is like just renounce the two extremes and don't know what to do. Okay, so it's a very negatively, or it's a negative guideline and not giving any positive clarity. That is what Vedanta says. You are not telling exactly what it is, you are just telling what it is not. Okay. Critics say the middle path can lead to avoid. Okay, so that is general. Like in general life, this middle path actually often get misunderstood, or often is used as an alibi to not taking strong stands wherever required. That is a general concept with respect to like this ethical aspect, eightfold path, or yes, with respect to ethical aspect. Even with respect to agnosticism, it's like the question is pertinent, question is there, everywhere knows, and you are not ready to answer. So not giving an answer to a question is not an answer. Okay, it's not a very positive thing. Then yes, morality becomes very difficult, because sometimes somebody's right and wrong, when it comes to right and wrong, and if you're taking middle path, it's a problem. Okay, so middle path in practical life never works in all the places. Okay, so that's all the points for the criticism. Thus the middle path truly is foundation of that is okay, but in spite of all the criticism, middle path has obviously been very popular. It has given people a lot of guidance whenever in the confusion. It tries to unite many aspects of Buddhist philosophy, and it gives a kind of positive sanction to a practical life, because ordinary life, otherwise in philosophical debates, ordinary life generally becomes neglected or kind of ignored. So this gives kind of the importance to ordinary life. Okay, let's go to the next question. This is PYQ. This 20 marker. This came in 2023. Ignorance of dependent origination is suffering. This basically ignorance of pratitya samutpad is suffering, and knowledge of pratitya samutpad is liberation or cessation of suffering. Okay, so basically question is about second noble truth and third noble truth. Okay, to some extent you can also mention fourth noble truth as a part of this. Okay, this is a 20 marker, so you take your time because you have to write at least 3 to 4 pages. Now, obviously, there will be conclusion. Before that, there will be criticism. Then there will be introduction. Now, dependent origination. You mentioned very briefly at least what dependent origination is, because that's what the question is. Okay, and then the question is, ignorance lead to suffering, knowledge lead to cessation. So here you talk about second noble truth, then third noble truth, and then Buddhist soteriology. That is, you can mention fourth noble truth. That is exactly the answer, demand of the answer. So Pratitya Samutpadvad, we already briefly you mentioned these 3-4 points that we discussed in the previous question also. Then in the next part, that is ignorance. So Buddha identifies Pratitya Samutpad. So ignorance means what? What happens? Pratitya Samutpadvad gives the answer that ignorance, when it applied to human suffering, you can mention this. When applied to human suffering, gives the answer as ignorance. Okay, so avidya. And what avidya? Because dependent origination tells you about kshanikvad. This thing tells you impermanence. Dependent variation tell to anityavad and nairatmyavad. And not having knowledge of this is ignorance. Okay, no need to mention each and everything. You just mention maybe one by one. The knowledge of dependent original leads to knowledge of kshanikvad, which clearly establishes or gives knowledge that the things are only momentary. So the things that are there in material life and otherwise are momentary, and to attach yourself the permanence, to attach the permanence to it causes the suffering. For example, if something is giving you happiness or pleasure, you are attaching the permanence to it, is going to be giving suffering, because the thing is not permanent, be it a thought or be it a physical thing. Same thing is with impermanence, that assuming life to be or physical life to be permanent, obviously going to give you suffering. Okay, and that is happening because you are not knowing that life cannot be. It, even if you wish, it cannot be permanent, because everything is dependent origination and only exists for a moment. Okay, then anityavad, obviously similar thing. The world, the things, and so-called eternal entity doesn't exist, whereas because of the ignorance of it, you go for the expectation of that entity being permanent. Then obviously nairatmyavad, all the more important, that your expectation that there is, or your calculation or conclusion that there is atma, or for that matter there is soul, that gives rise to suffering, because there is nothing called soul. It is just a stream of consciousness continuously, of fleeting consciousness continuously, one after the other, right? So how dependent origination gives suffering. Okay, and then all the aspects you mentioned, because dependent origination only are leading to this thing, including you also mentioned how dependent origination applied to human suffering, then all the aspect that desire, okay, then vedana, all other aspects, they are well established. So the person is freed from the compulsiveness of that aspect. Now you have to mention what happens when you have knowledge. Then, first of all, the ignorance is gone. Okay. Then second, as Buddha himself had mentioned, it's very apt place to mention, the one who knows Pratitya Samutpad knows Dham, and the one who knows Dham knows Pratitya Samutpad. And such an individual leads to Nirvana. Okay, so knowing Dhamma leads to Nirvana, because Nirvana is nothing but cessation of suffering. So basically, third here, and then fourth. So third, I'm sorry, this has to come here because I could not see it. So third noble truth, cessation of suffering. So how suffering would be removed? Just by awareness that everything is temporary. Now, when everything is impermanent, when everything is continuously changing, what will happen? The desire for permanence will go down. Desire for permanence or desire for Nityavad will go down. And once desire for that goes down, the suffering also goes down. Then what remains is Nirvana. And that thing that I mentioned, the one who knows this thing, is a very important point under this subheading. Okay, then comes fourth noble truth. Now, this is just an additional thing you mentioned. There is also, Buddha gives a particular practical method to acquire that knowledge, because this is not just intellectual knowledge, this is a realizational knowledge. Okay, so the knowledge that it is talking about is a realizational knowledge. Realizational knowledge, not just intellectual. So it needs continuous practice, continuous contemplation on Pratyita Samutpadvad, continuous contemplation on dependent origination. So continuous contemplation on dependent origination leads to the realization of impermanence, and realization of impermanence leads to Nirvana. For that, you no need to mention all the 8 paths, 8 aspects. You just mentioned Buddha gives 8-fold path for having this middle path and also having this knowledge to an individual, wherein dependent origination's knowledge leads to cessation of suffering, that is Nirvana. And then criticism. Now, in criticism, obviously, you criticize basically half of it. Your criticism is what we had done in previous question. The criticism of Pratyita Samutpad itself, criticism of Kshanikvad, criticism of middle path for that matter, and criticism of this cessation of suffering, that is Nirvana, being very non-optimistic target. Very important point, non-optimistic goal, non-optimistic spiritual goal. Because as compared to other goals like Brahm or Jivan Mukti and others, or Kaivalya Gyan, all gives positive, Ananta Chatushtaya and all positive aspects, positive values to, or some pleasant possibility, positive possibility, wherein Buddhist Nirvana, it is not giving any pleasant possibility in the form of spiritual goal, but very dry and non-negative cessation of suffering. Okay, so that is also a criticism of this aspect. Okay, then other aspects we already talked about. You have to little bit write about Pratisamutpadvad, Kshanikvad, and even Nairatmyavad, because the aspects are getting here. We are discussing it in detail. One by one, 4 or 5 points are enough here. Then you talk about conclusion. So, in spite of this criticism, Buddhism, obviously, not just as a philosophy, but also as a spiritual method, a spiritual technique, has been one of the most popular among the, not just in India, but also worldwide. And the central feature of that still remains that the knowledge of Pratitya Samutpad, the philosophical and metaphysical aspect of that remains to be Pratitya Samutpad. Okay, so that is enough for the conclusion. Let us see the next question. What is the theory of Pratitya Samutpadvad? Now, I'm not going to explain that theory of Pratitya Samutpadvad. That is theory of dependent origination. We'll just see the next aspect of that. Oh, and what is that next aspect? What happens? Now, honestly speaking, this was the easiest question because it was directly or straight away from the notes. Nothing much to be done by you as such. I mean, straightforward question. What happens when the theory is applied to investigation of human suffering? Basically, question is talking about Janam Maran Chakra. Okay, but obviously, question also talks about what is Pratitya Samutpadvad because it's a 20 marker again. So you have to accordingly write these things. Okay. I am giving 4 pages, but as I already mentioned, sometimes UPSC gives 3 pages, but that is okay. It is better to reduce the answer than to extend if you don't know. Yes, so you start about Pratitya Samutpadvad. Now you know what should be your subheading introduction. Okay. Buddhist thought of causation is unique stand, that is middle path between Satkaryavad and Asatkaryavad. I'm just coming up with the newer this thing. Make sure that the doctrine is called Pratitya Samutpadvad. Then you talk about at least 3-4 points when it is dependent origination. Okay, that this thing that arises, causal link. Okay, causal link. Then you talk about Kshanikvad, leading to Kshanikvad and other stuff. Okay, this now this particular thing is context to suffering. So here last point, because here application to human suffering. Human suffering. So you here you mention about human suffering. Okay, when applied this when Pratitya is applied to human suffering, it leads to the theory of Janama Maran or model of Janama Maran Chakra, wherein Buddha reaches to the answer of ignorance as the reason for cause of everything. Now here you mention Buddha's whole effort was obviously directed to, you know, this Buddha himself was only concerned about reducing elimination or reduction, better elimination. Buddha is all the more only for elimination of human suffering. So Buddha was always bothered about elimination of human suffering. Okay, and that's how he starts with this. Now you have to write all that. That is Jara, Maran, suffering. Then Jara, Maran is because of Jati. Jati is because of Bhava. Bhava is because of Upadan. Upadan is because of Krishna. That is, sorry. Krishna is because, don't write cycle. It's not the right representation. I'll tell you why it is not. It's a slightly different point, and this is the mistake almost everybody does. None of the book that I have talked about, I have read the authentic ones, they will never do the cycle here. This itself is not a cycle. This keeps on happening in the birth and life and birth. That is cycle. Cycle is of life and birth. This representation cannot be cycle. It's a unidirectional thing because it's a investigation of human suffering. So never write in the cycle. I'll also tell you why there is a logical flaw in maintaining that as a cycle. Okay. Then Trishna is because of Vedana. Vedana is because of contact, that is Sparsha. Sparsha is because organ, that is Shadayatan, or yes, 6 organs. Okay. Shadayatan is because Namarup. Namarup is because you have in your Vijnana is because Sankara. Sanskara is because ignorance. Now I'll just explain you something. So you have suffering. Okay, normally what you do, suffering is because. Now this is caused by. Suffering is caused by birth. Birth is caused by. That is the meaning of this. Caused by. Birth is caused by bhava. That is will to born. Okay. Will is caused by upadan. Upadan is clinging. Clinging is caused by. Upadan is caused by desire. Desire is caused by vedana. That is feeling. Feeling is caused by contact. Contact is caused by sixth sense organ. Sixth sense organ caused by psycho, physio, organism or body, namarup. Then mind body combination. Then it is caused because initial consciousness. Initial consciousness. And this is caused because sanskar. Now you tell me one aspect, which the mistake that you people must be doing. Are sanskar, yes. Okay. Sanskar caused by obviously ignorance. Sanskar are caused by ignorance. So if, like, for example, if you do things ignorantly, obviously sanskar will come. When sanskar comes, initial consciousness come. Initial consciousness come, then mind body. Then obviously because mind body, this, because sense organ contact, because contact feeling, because feeling desire, because desire clinging, because clinging will, because birth will birth, and because birth suffering. Now can you say because suffering ignorance? Think. Can you say because there is suffering there is ignorance? Or you say, can we say, if you go this way, like for example, why feelings are there because there was a contact. Contact is caused by, this is caused by this is caused by this is caused by sanskar. This consciousness is caused by sanskara. Sanskara is caused by ignorance, क्योंकि ignorance है तभी संस्कार आ गए. Can we say ignorance is caused by suffering? Can we say ignorance is caused by suffering? No. So this never gets linked. That's why it should not be drawn like this. It should only be drawn like this. What is chakra is jati and maran. And then jati. This is chakra. That's why it is called janama marana chakra. So when it comes to chakra, this should not be written like circularly, because another aspect is, like, see, now what is happening? Bhava. So from bhava to, okay, here we'll write. You'll understand. Okay, no problem. From bhava to sparsha and all that, last is ignorance, then impression, then initial consciousness. So from initial consciousness to bhava, this is present life. This life. Jati and Jaramaran is going to cause future life. And last two are past life. How can you connect like this? They are not connected. Past life, present life, future life. They are connected. Okay? And not reverse. So, because in past life, ignorance was there, impressions got created, and initial consciousness in the embryo came. Then, obviously, the kind of body and Vedana and everything you got. And because of the Vedana, desire, clinging, basically Upadan, and there is a will to born. Will to born is the last stage of the present life, which will give rise to the next future life, Jati, then next life also Jaramaran. Now this future life, if you make this is present life, then this is past life, and this is second or past to past life. Like it is. If you are saying Jaramaran of this life, then the sequence will change. Only thing is, basically speaking, if this is like fourth life, then this is fifth life, and this is third life. Now, if you want to change the number, you can. Or for that matter, if this is the nth life, then this is n minus 1th life, and this is n minus 2th life. Now you put whatever number you want to put it. So point is, never connect like this. That's why always write like this. Always write this thing. If you see this book CD Sharma and all, they are always never given cycle. Even the other book, that is Tatan Chatterjee, they have talked about Janam Maran cycle, not this cycle. I don't know from where this has come to our understanding. Anyway, so this point, then you mention about how what happens, then you the same thing you mention about briefly, how this causal link leads to ignorance. Okay, other intermediate links like desire, feeling, everything. So it is very practical importance, because you clearly practically also verified that if you have a pleasant experience, you would like to have it again. So there is a always clinging or will to have the experience again. That's how the chakra starts, and that's how you get into. So for someone to come out of this chakra is obviously get rid of the ignorance, because it's a kind of a basic cause of all the things. Okay, now, and ignorance means not just intellectual ignorance, but any point of time in the cycle, because ignorance is throughout. If you see that way, ignorance is there throughout. So at any point of your life, if you start for the knowledge, you will eventually leads to nirvana. Okay, so this, maybe if you want to add eightfold path, why? Because this is the consequence of this application. Ignorance becomes, when ignorance is the root cause, knowledge becomes is liberation, and knowledge is nothing but eightfold. No need to write again 8 points, just mention 1, 2, 3 lines at what eightfold path is and how it is giving you knowledge, because continuous contemplation on Pratyuta Samutpadvad is what going to give knowledge. Second, moral code and other stuff that you already know. Then criticism. A lot of criticism is there, obviously. So question is Pratyuta Samutpadvad. So 2, 3 points of Pratyuta Samutpad criticism you already know. That dependent means everything is vague, nothing remains, nothing is there, nihilism. Then vagueness in explanation of the things existence. Okay. Things existing only for a moment means things doesn't exist. Shunyavad is nothing but nihilism. So, and other thing is the nirvana. Okay, now this cycle also there is a criticism as to sorry why there are only 12 links. Answer is not given. Okay, so it's like a little arbitrary. And eightfold path is also criticized because it appears to be more on renunciation rather than engagement, rather than promoting clear, and this thing we already talked about it. And equivalent to sitting on the fence, like Vedanta says, this Ashtang Marg, eightfold path is like a sitting on the fence, not doing this also and that also, not taking any decision. It's like indecisiveness. Okay, but obviously the points, the similar points that we talked about, because middle path is nothing but this eightfold path. This analysis, this aspect, that why 12 links not established, and these links are also seems very abrupt and not logically arranged. You know, suddenly why Trishna will lead to Vedna and Vedna is caused by like that. So it is very abruptly mentioned. Okay. Then after the criticism, you talk about conclusion. Okay. Conclusion is obviously Pratyuta Samutpadvad is the central feature when applied to human suffering leads to the whole of Buddhism. Basically, Pratyuta Samutpadvad application to human suffering leading to eightfold path is all in all of Buddhist philosophy. It's a very important thing. Pratyuta Samutpadvad application to suffering, because Buddha was only concerned about suffering basically, and as a result, eightfold path is all in all of Buddha's philosophy. Nothing less, nothing more. Everything is covered. That can be called as Buddha's philosophy under this heading. Okay, this can be very good conclusion. That like for example, thus Pratyuta Samutpadvad applied to human suffering leading to eightfold path constitutes all in all of Buddhist philosophy. It successfully binds metaphysical, spiritual, and moral aspects together. If if followed meticulously, culminates into the achievement of nirvana. Okay, so thank you very much. That's all for this question. See you for the next question.